Everyone, welcome back to Rise with Sinalo Matubatuba. I'm your host, Sinalo Matubatuba, and I'm happy to have you. Thank you for tuning in. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, share, and comment on this episode, and also watch previous episodes that we've shared. Today is a bit different. Today I am having a solo episode, so I haven't had this in a while, and I hope you guys will enjoy and resonate with the episode. And I hope that this episode assists you in your own journey in trying to navigate, the workspace, and trying to navigate studies, and trying to navigate that new business you're starting, whatever journey that you may be in whatever field that you might find yourself in. This episode is there to actually assist you and to actually help you and set you free in fears that you may have. So today we'll be discussing the fear of making mistakes and how you shouldn't let those mistakes define you. So since we're doing a solo episode, don't worry, the interview episodes are still on, but I will be adding some solo episodes to the mix just to still, have those one-on-one engagements with you guys. And I think that is still important. That is still going to get across the message of the podcast. Anyways, let's dive into this. This is something that is very close to me because I have struggled with it so many times, and for a very long time I've been struggling with being held back by the fear of making mistakes. And I know that I'm not the only one who makes mistakes. I mean, all of us make mistakes because we're humans after all. But before we jump in, I want to take a moment and say thank you for your continued support by subscribing to the channel, and also by actually engaging with me. When I'm walking at the mall or something, I feel like a celeb sometimes because they're like, thanks, keep doing what you're doing. So yeah, that means a lot to me, and that actually means that you guys are actually listening to what I have to say and to the perspectives and insights shared by the guests that we have on the podcast. So thank you a lot for your continued support. It means a lot, and we're not going to stop this. We're actually going to continue with the work that we're doing. So truly, I appreciate you, and every listen, every share, every comment, means a lot. So thank you for that. And also, exciting news, we'll be launching a newsletter for the podcast. So this is something I've been thinking about for a long time, but because of other commitments, I haven't been able to actually commit to it. But yeah, we've been working on it behind the scenes, and it's a way for us to stay connected, stay connected through print and through actually having updates on what is to come on the podcast, what are the takeaways from a previous episode, what can we learn, and keep the conversation flowing. So in the next coming months, we will be actually launching that newsletter for Rise. And yeah, I am excited about this. And yeah, please do share what you may think of this, what we should do, and stuff like that. So yeah, we'll be sharing exclusive insights, behind the scenes content, personal reflections, and practical tips on the content that we share, which is personal and professional development. And so if you haven't already signed up, the link to this newsletter will be shared in due course. Sorry, not in due course. It will be shared on the link to this episode. So, and of course, don't forget, please, I always say this because I forget to say it. So every time when I remember, please subscribe, like, and share to someone that you think the content that we're sharing will assist. And yeah, so I think to start off, we need to understand that at the end of the day, we're human beings. We haven't done this before. It's the first time we're doing it, and we are going to make mistakes. Mistakes don't define us. Mistakes don't define our competence. And mistakes don't mean that we're stupid. No one who has done something great in this world, or even a normal person who is just living day-to-day life, without doing anything extraordinary, has not made a mistake. Everyone has made a mistake. So we need to remove the idea that some people don't make mistakes. We all make mistakes. It just depends on what it is. And the only thing we can do in rising above our mistakes is to actually learn from them. So as long as you haven't learned from your mistake, then it will continue to imprison you. So you need to step back when you've made one and actually reflect, how did I go wrong? What is this mistake? And then from there, you learn from that and you actually try and, bounce back from it, having known that, okay, this is the mistake and this is what I did. I was actually supposed to do it this way. And that's how you actually conquer mistakes. That's how you learn. That's how you gain experience. That's how you gain wisdom, by making mistakes. So we shouldn't let our mistakes imprison us, but they should set us free. We should actually want to do more because we've made mistakes. And no person in this world, I don't care who it is, will tell you that they haven't made a mistake, as long as you learn from that mistake, And how many times have you stopped yourself from doing things because you're scared of making a mistake? And I've done that so many times. This very podcast was delayed a number of years, I think 3 years, because I was scared of making a mistake, because I imagined a podcast that was perfect, a podcast that, had those lights and everything, beautiful sound and everything. But I had to understand that in life, you have to start somewhere. And in starting somewhere, you just start, right? You won't have everything at your disposal, but if you have the will to start, you start. And sometimes the fear of making mistakes is one of our greatest impediments. It's one of the biggest chains that hold us back from doing things that we want to do, things that we know are actually going to help us reach our potential. So I invite you to actually use the fear of making a mistake as your fuel to actually succeed, as your fuel to actually start the project you've been contemplating that you're scared to mess up, as fuel to register for that course that you think you are not good enough for that job position that you think you are not good enough for, that you fear that you're going to make mistakes if you get it. So don't let it define you, but rather let it be something that drives you forward and something that, is a fuel for you to move forward. So we live in a world where perfection is praised, where, especially our generation, we want to be perfect in everything. And you can see this, even in the content that we share, the edits must be to the T, everything needs to be up to the T. We are very perfectionist, and because of that, we always look at what the other person next to us is doing, and it needs to be perfect because we're scared of scrutiny. We're scared of being laughed at. We're scared of being, labeled as whatever. So we tend to think so much and panic at times because we're like, why should I do this? I'm going to mess it up, or there's a high likelihood that I mess it up, so I'd rather not do it anyways. And, that is such a great impediment in things that we destined to do, or rather things that we dream of doing, and we end up not doing them because we're scared of messing them up. So mistakes are not failures. I think we need to register that. Making a mistake is not a failure. Making a mistake is a lesson in disguise. And you need to take that lesson. It doesn't matter how much you may beat yourself about a mistake you've done, how much you might feel like, this was so simple, how can I be so stupid? That is also important. The words that you feed to yourself, you need to be kind to yourself. You cannot say, I'm so stupid, right? Even if you might think that is true, but you need to be kind to yourself, and you can't be hard, right? You need to be very kind to yourself, in saying that, okay, I've made this, what was wrong? And actually try and find out how were you wrong? How did you mess this up? Rather than being so hard on yourself. So if you ever let fear stop you from taking action, this episode is for you. And so moving on, I'd like to share a personal story of my own fear of making mistakes. Because I'm human and I'm sure you've made a mistake as well. And I think that's just being part of life and being a human being. So for the longest time, I've beat myself up for making mistakes. Like, it's known by people close to me that it would like scare me so much to a point where it would mess my whole day, if not my whole week. I would constantly ask myself and be hard on myself, why did I make this mistake? You know? And sometimes we forget that because we dwell so much on this one thing and how messed up we have caused everything to be around that thing, we end up missing other things because we were so fixated on that mess that we've created there. Instead of learning and saying, okay, let me park this one side. What mess up did I do? Okay, it's fine. Let me continue with other things. I'll then see how I fix that. And that is part of life, because you will dwell on a mistake, but life keeps on moving. Life won't wait for you and you're sulking over a mistake. So you need to chin up and accept that you've made a mistake, and then look at what can you learn from that mistake, and then move on into other things, because the world is not going to stop for you because you've made a mistake. The world's not going to say, oh, I'm sorry, you made a mistake. Let's see what we're doing with this. Take a day off so you can... I'm not saying let your emotions engulf you. Like, feel the emotions. If you're sad about it, be sad about it. If you want to cry about it, cry about it. But you need to wipe your tears and get grinding again, because life does not wait for you. I think that's the harshest reality I've faced from, getting into the world of work, being someone who's working, being a candidate attorney, is realizing that I will mess up, but whatever I've messed up, does not define the moment. There are 10 other things or 20 other things that I need to attend to. And I have to show up for those things as if this one thing did not happen. So that's one thing I've learned, that the show keeps on going and the curtain won't close because now Sinalo has made a mistake on this. So for the longest time, I used to beat myself for mistakes. I'd overthink it, replay the mistake, and it would even affect my confidence at times. I'm like, but how can I make that mistake? What does that say about me? Am I even supposed to be here because I've made that mistake, And thinking back, even from school, sometimes I wouldn't even speak up in class, suggest something or answer a question because I'm scared I'll get that question, I'll get the answer wrong. Or I even delayed starting the very podcast, as I said earlier on, because I was of the view that I wanted it to be perfect. I wanted it to have everything, and that's not life. Life is not perfect. And that's what I've learned, that life is not perfect. The show goes on and you need to go on, So even in my career, I don't know how many times I've sent emails to the wrong parties, and you feel like the world is ending, literally. But at the end of the day, you need to learn and you need to add systems in place that actually help you, because your pressure points, what ticks you off, how you act in certain, situations. So you need to have those things and you need to have grace, be gracious to yourself. You're just a person. Always say this, you're just a person. I know it can be hardcore, crunch time, whatever, but you're just a person. So you need to have grace and you need to be gracious to yourself. And that's what I've tried to do, for the longest time. And lessons from greatness this one might be an odd one, but I've watched this movie many times. Rather, I've watched the series of these movies for the longest time, the Rocky Balboa franchise. And I don't know, my younger brother could tell you guys how we actually, love these movies, and we actually still get lessons from these movies till this day. And Rocky, which is the main character in the movie called Rocky, the boxing star movie from nothing to a great champion and stuff, was actually played by Sylvester Stallone. And Sylvester Stallone had the Rocky script, and he would try and sell it to different, production houses so that the movie could be made. But these production houses wouldn't accept it because he only wanted to sell it on condition that he becomes the lead role. He plays a lead role, which is Rocky in the movie. But this didn't happen, So he actually pushed to a point where he actually played Rocky. And if you've watched Rocky, if you understand movies in South Africa, you understand that Rocky, the Rocky franchise, is arguably one of the best movies or movie franchises that this world has seen. That story alone, for me, it characterized something of will and not giving up and not being scared of making mistakes. He has never shot a movie. He had never played a lead role in a movie before. But he actually took it upon himself to say, look, this is my work and I'm only going to sell this to you if I am cast as a lead role. And for me, that spoke volumes in terms of how we need to approach life in general and how we need to approach our goals and our dreams, because at the end of the day, you have this vision, you know what you want to do, you have these goals and aspirations that you want to achieve, and until you take initiative, no one will do it for you. So you need to step out of that shell of being scared of making the mistake and do it anyways. I mean, please, just do it, you will learn, like, even if you mess up to a point of no return, I don't believe that there's no return, but you'll come back a stronger person, you'll come back more refined and more experienced, in whatever you're doing. I've messed up, like, sometimes I think of the first episode that I've shot in this journey of my podcasting, and sometimes I cringe, because I'm like, oh, okay, so I did that, But I appreciate those moments, and I appreciate the fact that I can still go back to that and look at it, because it teaches me something. It teaches me something that as a person, as a human being, you need to start somewhere. So don't ever feel small. Don't ever feel like making a mistake is going to be the end of the world and that's going to be it. You need to know that in life, we need to start somewhere. And in starting somewhere, we are going to make the mistakes. But after that mistake, the road will be easier. There will be other challenges along the way, but the very thing that holds us is mistakes, and we need not to be defined by them, but we need to actually smash them and pass through and go on with the journey. So moving on, Rocky did not have money, and he just blossomed because he didn't think less of himself and say, okay, I've never done this before, so I'll just give up on this dream. He actually persisted. He actually stayed on course, and he actually ensured that he goes on and he does what he has in mind, what his dream is, and he actually fulfilled his dream. And so can you, and so can I. It is just a matter of action. It's just a matter of taking initiative. It's just a matter of telling yourself that I am so and so, I am from this place, and I can do this. Yes, I'll fall, but I'll stand up and I'll do it. And I encourage you to do that. Because at the end of the day, the only thing you have is yourself. The only thing you have is you. And until you push yourself, Your mother won't always be there. Your teacher won't always be there. So and so not always be there. It will just be you. And you have to make a choice. Am I doing this or am I not doing this? And sometimes in us being at crossroads, in having to make that choice, we are faced with that fear. And we need to kick it away because it will hold us back in reaching our full potential. So, reframing mistakes as lessons. I said this earlier on that let's not see the mistakes that we make as mistakes and the end all be all, but rather as lessons. Let's look at what can we learn from that mistake that we have created. And that for me requires a mindset shift. One is you need to be positive. You cannot always beat yourself about making the mistake, right? You need to be optimistic about the opportunities that making that mistake have now created for you. The things that for instance, Thomas Edison, many times that he, tried to do the light bulb, but eventually he did it, right? That experience, that wisdom, knowing that there are 99 ways in which a light bulb will fail if you try and do it, but there's only one way in which it will succeed. I know this might sound cliche because many motivational speakers and so on have used it, but it's the reality of it. In making that mistake, you become wiser. And let's import that into our lives. Let's not see less of ourselves because we've made a mistake. Let's not beat ourselves because we've made a mistake. Let's not be discouraged because we've made a mistake. You are here for a reason, and you are here to fulfill your dream. And don't let that fear withhold you. Don't let that fear become a prison and imprison you and shackle you to the ground. So untie those chains, break those chains and go for your dreams. If you make mistakes, continue. You've now learned a lesson. You can now tell someone like me and many other people that, okay, in terms of doing this, actually that way doesn't work. This way does work. So that is the beauty of learning. That is the beauty of making mistakes. That is the beauty of wanting to try one more time again and again and again and again. So I encourage you to do that. And the quick mindset shift entails that if, for instance, let's say you keep forgetting things, you're a forgetful person. Let me not even say you're a forgetful person because then that defines you as a forgetful person. Let's say you keep on forgetting. Does it mean that you're a forgetful person? No. As I said, let's not use it as something that defines us. No, it does not mean that you're a forgetful person. So let's shift. Maybe your reminder system is not working. Maybe you're using a diary, like a physical diary. Maybe stop using it because you're not consistent with that. So use a digital diary on your phone. If you struggle to wake up early, for instance, does it mean you're lazy? No, it doesn't mean you're lazy. Maybe you need to adjust your night routine so that you can be able to wake up early and then do whatever you have to do. So it all goes with mindset shift and in tuning yourself, in monitoring yourself, in conditioning yourself on how you can do things better and how you can. I always say this at school, like sometimes you get someone who would say, I studied the night before, and you'd get someone who says, I have to prepare, for like a week or 1.5 week before the test. And I think I was part of those people. Like, I was not afraid to admit that I need preparation for this. I don't know this. I was having a jaw time in class. I didn't listen to what was being said. So I was those people, and it didn't mean that I was not smart. It didn't mean that the person that studied the night before was like smarter than me or anything like that. It just means that you need to have your mindset shift. And in having that mindset shift, it means that you have to look at what works for you, right? Look at what works for you and do that thing. And that small system change, like changing a small part of your routine, can change your whole life. And I've learned this in a book by James Clear called Atomic Habits. where he actually speaks about the UK cycling team and how this team was actually doing so bad for a very long time. And in this team, they actually tried to, have different initiatives to actually make sure that the team is successful. And the coach that was appointed at the time actually changed the whole thing, whereby they said, okay, we're not going to do anything much. Let's look at the bikes. Where are the bikes stored? Is it cleaned? Is the surfaces cleaned? The training, how are they doing training? What time do they stop? What time do they start? How clean is where we pack the bikes? How are the bikes packed? How are they serviced? So it was those small miniature things that they changed in the management of that cycling team that actually changed everything in that team. So I've learned that through that book, the small things actually compound to something way bigger. So in making mistakes, you can say, I'm making a small mistake, and you dismiss it. But you should actually look at the small mistakes that you're doing. Look at the small mistakes that you're doing and actually ask yourself whether you are learning anything from it. And if you don't draw a lesson and you learn anything from it, then it will remain a mistake. But if you actually take time and actually learn from that, then it will stop being a mistake. It now becomes a lesson. It's now something that makes you stronger and wiser. And now you have more experience. And that translates. So nothing is bigger or smaller in life because the same principle exists. You just have to import the same approach to things, no matter how serious or unserious you may think they are. And that's how one needs to actually look at how they, how they interpret, the mistakes that they make. It doesn't matter whether you left the iron on or whether you didn't send that email. It's the same. So you might dismiss the one thing thinking, it's not serious, but it translates to the same outcome or implications or ramifications. Call it what you like. So before I deviate from what we're talking about, we need to understand that growth happens outside our comfort zone. And in having a mindset shift, we need to ask ourselves, what can I learn from this? That's a very important question. Yes, I've made a mistake. Fine, I accept it. But what can I learn from it? Second thing, how can I adjust and improve? I've made the mistake. This is what I can learn from it. Now, how can I adjust and improve? And I think it's something that we've spoken about a lot. And another person who has inspired me so much, in their own journey is our former president, Nelson Mandela. And I know everyone speaks about Nelson Mandela, but he's also my G. And Nelson Mandela, who is one of my biggest inspirations, once said, and I quote, "I never lose, I either win or I learn." So think about that. I never lose, I either win or I learn. So I invite you, don't ever think that you've lost. Either win or you learn. Let's take the opportunities that we have and let's grab them with both hands. Let's not be scared or be shaken by them. Let's not be scared and think that making a mistake will be the end all. But let's rather ask ourselves whether are we going to win or are we going to learn something from that mistake. So even when Nelson Mandela was imprisoned for 27 years, he didn't let that experience break him. He actually came out prison wiser, peaceful, stronger, and even more determined to create change. So in making or in having these setbacks in life in general, I'll take making a mistake as a setback. We need to emerge wiser, stronger, more experienced from that, And mistakes, setbacks, failures, They all have something to teach us. We shouldn't just say, okay, no, this is it. I rest. No, we can't do that. We need to actually stand up and say, okay, this happened, and accept it. And go through the emotions. And say, okay, now where to from here? What do we do? I always think of the mistakes that I make as things that are actually showing me that I'm actually one step closer to what I want to get. So if I make a mistake, I'm like, in me trying to get this, I at least know there's one way in which trying to get this doesn't work. So let me try this other way. And that's how I've actually tried to move from the mistakes that I've made through the years. And the next time you make a mistake, instead of seeing it as a failure, see it as a lesson, because that's exactly what it is. And now, in trying to be practical, we need to understand that there are things that you can start doing now that will actually help you in doing this. We can say all we like, but what is the how? What do we do? This is educational, and please don't quote me anywhere saying Sinalo said on this. This is what I think works, and we're an educational podcast. So please don't say I'm not an expert in anything. I'm just sharing a journey and sharing others' journeys in order to inspire you on your own journey. So I'm a journey's guy. I don't know what that means, but yeah. So in getting practical, here are 3 things that you can start doing today to overcome the fear of mistakes. The first thing is give yourself grace. And we've said this time and time again in this episode. You're human. You're going to mess up. Be kind to yourself and move forward. You've never done this before. This is the first time that you're doing this. So why are you beating yourself about it? Why are you beating yourself that you made a mistake? Where were you supposed to know buzo yazalapi that you were supposed to do it a certain way? It's the first time doing it. Second thing is you need to reframe your mindset. Mindset shift is very important, as we had mentioned earlier on. Stop seeing mistakes as failures. Start seeing them as lessons. If you have a hard time thinking about what a mindset shift is, first start by being positive to yourself. Be optimistic. Tell yourself that, look, I can do this. And if it entails cutting out people in your life, cut them out. They're not for you. They were never for you. If they're bringing you down and they're laughing at you, ooh, look at this one, what is he or she doing? Remove them from your life. They're not for you. Because why are you laughing at me? Because I started a podcast. What are you trying to do? What is your point? Why are you even here in my life? Get out. That's what you need to do. And I encourage you to do that. Like, if people are not for you, they're not for you. You shouldn't put them in your life. So, third thing, take action despite the fear. Put your best foot forward. Start. It doesn't matter what you have. Just start. You won't have everything. I can tell you for that. I started this podcast with an Android phone, Android phone, 32 gigabyte, Samsung. If you know Samsung, they run out of space. Every time after posting an episode, I had to delete that episode so I could record a new one because I didn't have space. So what I'm trying to say is the challenges won't define you. In starting what you want to start, there'll always be challenges. Even apart from the fear of making mistakes, we'll have financial difficulties, you have logistical difficulties. There'll be so many things that are actually going to force you to look the other way and not even think about the idea that is actually keeping you up at night. But you need to actually start. In Xhosa we say uzobona phambili. You need to be uzobona phambili person and saying, okay, I will see. We'll see when we cross that bridge type of person. You need to be like that, because not everything, we don't live in a perfect world. We won't always have the resources, especially as black people. We don't have resources. There's no support. So you need to start with what you have and then build from that and be consistent. And then, move on like that, and then you move forward. So if, for instance, I had let fear stop me, I wouldn't have started this podcast. If Stallone let rejection hinder him, we wouldn't have had Rocky. We wouldn't have those iconic fights that want you to step into that ring today. If Mandela let his setbacks defeat him, history would have looked very different. I tell you for sure, I wouldn't be standing here right now speaking to you. Maybe, I don't know. So don't let your fears define you. You are worthy. You are incredible. You can do this. You have it within yourself. You will meet challenges. I always speak to people and they're like, oh, I have this idea. I want to start this. But the thing is, I don't have funding, And yes, funding is a real thing. It's a reality. There's no funding. But what is that small thing we can do to start? If you need 20 things, can't we start with one for now and then we move on? We'll get to the 20, but can't we start with the small that we have? Or actually try and hustle for that 1 unit instead of trying and getting the 20 or the 50. Can't we start small and then build on that? And so I encourage you to do that. Let's start small. Let's be kind to ourselves. Let's not let our fears define us. Let's not let our fears bring us down. It's very important. And speaking to young people, in high school, in university, this thing exists. And what makes me angry sometimes is how sometimes people around us can actually perpetuate it, actually add fuel to that fire, which we don't need. So in whatever you want to do, sometimes just do it. Just do it. Please, start, do it. And as we close this episode, I would like to leave you with this thought. Mistakes are not the enemy. Inaction is. Mistakes are not the enemy. Inaction is. You'll make many mistakes in your lifetime. But if you don't act, that's even more brutal. So please act and don't let those mistakes define you. The only real failure is not trying at all. If this episode resonated with you, please do me a favor and share it with someone who needs to hear it. And don't forget, once again, to hit the like button, share, subscribe, comment. You can reach me on my email, which is available on the description. And also, please remember that we're doing this once, guys. We're living once. We won't have this again. And it's important that we go for the things that we want, the things that fuel our drive, the things that keep us up at night. So thank you for spending time and listening to this point. And let's keep rising together. And until next time, go out there, make mistakes, make many mistakes, and embrace the journey. Anyways, thank you guys for tuning in. And until next time, this is Sinalo Matubatuba. Peace.